In talking about relationships and stuff, how like you and Marnie?
That girl, like, she is my absolute rock, like my absolute rock. So, and I followed her on Instagram and she followed me back and I was like, oh shit, here we go. And then I think my content was just dead, man. My content was just so dead. She unfollowed me and I was just like, bro,
Oh,
shit, shit.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. This podcast is sponsored by Insight Subs. So for all your supplement needs, head to insightsubs.com. They have a massive variety of supplements, so many different brands, giving you an insight into some of the best supplements from around the world, not just in the UK. So if we go to categories now, we can look at whey blends. I'm going to take you to one of my favorite whey proteins, which has Perform Whey. There's so many flavors, a few of them out of stock, but always keep your eye open because they will come back in stock. If you follow Insight Subs on Instagram, you'll be able to also keep updated on when the new stocks come in. So all you have to do, give it a quick click, add it to cart, then check out. And what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of a discount here real quick by putting in PHYSIQUE 10. And by doing that, you can get yourself a little bit of a discount. You can sponsor the podcast, sponsor me as an athlete, and I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the episode. Right, cool. We will restart this because I know that pissed me off. Right. Yo, what's going on, guys? We're back with another Athlete Insight podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to Joe Richardson, who is 3 weeks out, an awesome classic athlete. We'll kind of talk about where he's been, what he's been through, like just why he even started bodybuilding. We want to kind of just break down everything. But we're going to start number one with this prep because right now you're 3 weeks out. So is there anything interesting that's happened over the last few weeks coming into this show, or has it been a pretty steady prep?
Yeah, man. So obviously during this prep, I have actually swapped coaches. It was like, I don't know if you find this, but I can't imagine what it's like at the top of the sport, but a lot of people kind of are very intrigued about like the inside of why certain things happen. And like, I can imagine like when you're at the very, very top of the sport, like, you see people change coaches and it's like this big ordeal. But, I started this prep and I did my last off season with Cuba. We had like a really, really productive off season. And then I started sort of the first 8 weeks with him. We kind of had a bit of a difference in our opinions with certain things. So I moved over to Jake Watts, who's now my current coach. But the whole time, mate, through this prep, it's been an absolute breeze. Like, I've been in them preps where you do 2 hours of cardio, you do 50 grams of carbs. And I think you kind of have to go through those preps sometimes to kind of understand what it's like and how it feels. And I think when you do a first prep, you've got body fat there that's never come off. You've never come down to like a true stage condition. Whereas, like before this prep, I've done 2 of the seasons. So I've never really been in true condition, but I've been in relatively good stage condition. And because my off season was so productive, my food got so high, and I put on quite a lot of tissue. Like, we're estimating anywhere between like 10 to 15 kilos of actual stage weight. Like, this prep's been a breeze. Like, my food's still mega, mega high. My cardio at the moment's only today it's gone up to 5 sessions of 20 minutes. But my food like intake's still super high. And I think it just comes down to the way that I execute the off season. And I think as well, like the level of muscle mass that I now attain. So the prep itself so far has been a doddle. Like, I literally can't complain. I know that there's people that do preps and probably are doing preps right now, watching this, doing like 2 hours of cardio, doing 50 grams of carbs, like really having to go to those places. But I guess you have to do what you have to do to get in shape. Everybody's different. Some people can go through a prep on like 8,000 steps, like not a problem. But yeah, mate, this prep so far has been a lot of fun, a lot of fun. But what I will say is that I've definitely learned a lot. Like, I've never ever been this lean. So it's come with like new emotions, new feelings. Like, when I check in with Jake on a morning, he's like, "How do you feel?" And I'm like, I feel like shit, but I should feel like shit. I don't really know how to relay the information because I've never been this lean. Like, I think there was a point where I was like 7 weeks out, and I think I was in better condition at 7 weeks out this time than I was actually the day before my last show, like my last season. So in that aspect, like, this is all new territory for me. But like, as a whole, the prep's just been mega fun, and I've not been pushed at all, to be honest.
Good, good. That sounds good because you want to obviously keep as much muscle mass. I remember I spoke to you probably ages ago. That was ages ago, and I think you said you were doing like a 24-week prep. Is it something that you did a really long prep, didn't you? And you said
Yeah, so like
we'll kind of
initially, like I don't know how you work with your clients, but like a lot of coaches obviously kind of reverse engineer and timeline, obviously preps and off seasons and stuff. And when I was with Kuba, I think from the start of prep, which was February, to the show that he wanted me to do was like 31 weeks until the regional. But this prep now, because the show I'm doing is 5 weeks closer, I think the total length's like 26 weeks, I think.
is that that's the longest prep you've done?
Yeah, definitely.
So
I think the last.
is it like a just a slower like rate of drop that you're going for them?
Yeah, well, it's weird, because when I did like the first 10 weeks, I started this prep at like 108.5 kilos
How tall are you?
and 5'9". So I'm like right at the top of class B in classic. So like if I had another inch, I would end up going into class C, but at the bottom end.
Oh, it depends where you are in Spain. They tried to tell me I was 5'6", but whatever.
Mate, do you know what's mad, right? Every time I see you compete, like obviously I'll be round Marnie, I'm like, fucking hell, Dudley again's like ran into another issue. I'm like, this guy just doesn't get a break.
Problems and situations all the time, but
Mate,
yeah.
there's always something going on with you in competitions, whether it's
I
like
know, man.
registration, your shoulder. Like, obviously there was that time with the whole like, I think was it like you didn't do a regional and you went all the way through?
I thought we were going to be fine, and I flew to Spain. I even messaged them everything I thought was going to be fine, and then it just the night before they decided to tell me. I was like, I've been tagging you lot in posts for the last 12 weeks. Yeah, you could have
Yeah,
told me.
yeah,
Look, this is a
yeah,
secret, but yeah, that's a whole other story. I'll probably get into it
yeah,
one
mate, yeah. Was that
on a
because
podcast.
you were a resident of Dubai or something, or
No, we had all the lockdown situation, didn't we? So this
right,
was, look, I can't get back to England to do a regional at this
right,
point. I'll pay for the regional or whatever, and I'll register for it, but due to the COVID restrictions, like I don't think I'll be able to get back. Like, will that be okay? Because I'd heard from other people that they've had
yeah,
the regional, registered for it, but just not actually shown up on stage. So technically, I paid all the stuff, I registered, and then I thought it'd be all right. I dropped them a message. They kind of give me a message back that made me think, okay, I might be all right then. And I've heard that other people have done it as well. So I'm like, okay, I'll be cool. But
yeah.
then he wanted to use me as an example. So they let me fly all the way from Dubai to Spain. And then the night before, tell me that I can't step on the stage. So
Fucking
that
typical,
was
man.
that. I just got used as to set an example, I think, which
Yeah.
is not nice.
But going back to the original question, so like yeah, like I started this prep at 108 kilos. That was like the heaviest I've ever been. But the thing is, like when I ended my off season, I could still pull like mega deep vacuums. My midsection was still pretty like tight. So it was a really, really good start position because my food was high as well. But my body responds like really quickly at the start of preps. So I dropped like 8 kilos in the first 4 to 5 weeks. Probably just obviously like inflammation. Obviously, you know what it's like at the back of an off season. You're eating a bit more like off plan meals. So obviously all of the shit food was
shit,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when I was still with Kuba at the time, he was like, "Look, we're gonna have to put your baseline food up because you're moving too quick." So at the start of prep, I dropped like right down close to the 100 kilo mark within like the first 6 weeks. So we had to obviously put the food up. But after that, mate, it's just been very, very slow and steady. But you'll know like there's points in a prep where you hit like a bit of a wall, and you'll sit and you'll sit and you'll sit, and then you're thinking, oh my god, like this is this ever going to move? And
What
then
was
like
that for you?
for me, the one that I remember the most was like breaking kind of through the 92, 91 barrier
Yeah,
because
mine
my
was 93. Mine was 93.
because my cap's obviously 89 with being in classic, and I was like, I'm so close. Like, why can't I? Even though I was like weeks and weeks out, I was like, I just want to break through. And then finally, once we punched through, it moved again. So I always find on preps that you get that little like sticking point, and then you break through and it moves again.
Mm.
So basically, yeah, from like once I got to 100 and under, that was kind of just like slow and steady. Then we stuck at like the 92 kilo mark, and then we finally got into the 80s. And now I'm sitting like again. I think I've hit that barrier again now, and it's about 86, 87 kilo. So that's why today Jake's obviously he's brought the food down and he's put the cardio up for the last 3 weeks. But obviously we're at that point in prep where you're doing daily check-ins anyway. So, you know, if today's changes maybe don't do what we want, then a few days down the line we can make more changes, or, you know, whatever we need to do. Because we still have tons of room to maneuver. Like, food can still come down, cardio can still go up. Like, there's loads of room.
Yeah, that's a good point. What I'm going to do is I'll bring up your Instagram now so people can see, if they've not seen, screen share it. How are you looking at the moment? Oh,
I haven't put a recent update on for a little bit. I'll say that.
You put a little leg shot yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, that was after my tissue work, man.
Why is my Instagram not showing up on? What the hell? There we are. Share. Boom. So, latest update, which is the latest like full update?
I always pin it so it's the top right one. So that was what, like 3 weeks ago?
Okay.
Yeah, but mate, the amount that I've changed in that 3 weeks, it's like my front side comes in a lot quicker than the back. Yeah. So if you go through, you'll see that on these shots, like my glutes and stuff are still not in. The little arrow on the right hand side. If you go back on those, yeah, like, well, there you go.
Oh yeah, there's more on this. Oh shit,
yeah. You can see my glutes are still, like, they're etched, but they're still soft. Like my hamstrings again etched, but they're not like violin strings. But for me, like, what me and Jake are really focusing on is that lower back. Like, my lower back really needs to come in.
Yeah.
I want that, like, Michael DeBoule, like, you know, where his back just striates like from the center out. That's what I really want. But from this photo, mate, I've changed massively. So obviously I was 89.4 on this one, and my prep low was 86.7. So I'm 2 kilos lighter than this now.
86.7. What's the cap? Did you say
89? Yeah.
Mine's 86, I think.
Yeah, so you must be 5'8".
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is, like, with me is, when I did my 21 season, we kind of ran flat for the Arnold for too long, and I couldn't fill back out. So my biggest fear is, I think a lot of people, when they compete, they think it's like a glute competition, which to a degree it is. But if you're going to get your glutes in to lose other body parts, is it really worth it? Like, my chest and arms flatten off very, very quickly. Like, that's the telltale sign. So I just need to be on that, like, tightrope of, like, yeah, let's get your glutes in, but let's not lose other body parts.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's about a full balance, especially in classic as well. Like,
yeah,
we need to have a full balance of everything.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot. So sometimes you can push too much and just ruin the look, and that's where it comes to, like, do you then push too open, or like,
exactly,
you've got so much room in classic to
work. The thing is, mate, like, me and Jake want me, like, just chucking a random number out there, like, be ready around like 83, 82, which still gives me, as an amateur, like, you know, 6 or 7 kilos or whatever it is the maths is. And then, you know, if and when we turn pro, it's like, you know, there's another 4 kilos on top of that.
What did you work on in the off season? Like, what were the kind of feedback from the last show that you did? Because that was, is there a pic here of Arnold's?
Yeah, graftism. You can use graftism.
Was that your last one?
Well, we did the Arnold as well, but stage shots will be quite a way down. So if you want to just use these ones, to be fair, mate, I looked better at this show than I did at the Arnold, because, like I say, we pushed too hard for the Arnold.
Yeah.
We chucked, like, you know what it's like sometimes, you chuck the kitchen sink when it comes to, like, PEDs, and I think my body just got so toxic, so flat. It just was so unhappy that the look was just worse than this.
Yeah. I think similar kind of thing happened to me going into the amateur Olympia in Spain. My body was just rejecting everything. I'm talking about, like, I was pinning, and every site was getting inflamed all the time.
I remember seeing you say that.
I had to just, like, stop pinning totally for about 4 weeks, because that was post the regionals, did the regional, but anything after that, my body just proper shut down and started rejecting literally everything. And I was doing 800 grams of carbs every other day and still dropping weight. wasn't in because it was just rejecting it. And
I think this is the thing, like, people forget that, like, if your body isn't happy on the inside, it's going to reflect on the outside. So you can push all of the drugs that you want, but if your body inside's like, nah, this isn't really working, like, it's going to reflect, and you're going to look stressed, and you're going to look fatigued and watery, and it will show.
Yeah. So what have you improved from this show here, would you say, coming into this season?
Fucking everything. I remember, mate, right, when I weighed in at the Graftism, I thought my weight cap was like, I thought my height was 5'7", so I heighted in at 5'9", and straight away I got an extra 25 pounds of stage weight.
I think every guy would love to say that. They think the 5'7".
Yeah.
5'9".
Mate, I thought I was
5'10", and I'm 5'8".
I weighed in fully clothed, hoodie, like joggers. I was 170 pounds, and I just turned around to Marnie. I remember it so clearly, and I was like, "Well, that's going to be a good off season, then, isn't it?"
That's crazy. No, that's what you want to see, though. You want to see yourself in that.
But this is the thing, mate. Like, I think when it comes to like classic, like you know when someone belongs there, like you really do. But yeah, when it came to the off season, obviously when I spoke with Kuba, it was like massively big focus on like upper shelf, so chest, delts, but really arms. Like my arms were they're still shit now, to be fair, but they needed their own day. I was one of those people that was doing push pull legs, just tagging arms on the end. And you know, when you tag a body part on the end of like a big session, you're not going to give it everything.
Yeah.
And I think the 90% of people need an arm day, like if you're going to do push pull legs, because you see people like Jordan Peters say, you know, you don't need an arm day, but like these people are genetically gifted with massive arms. So he can do pull downs, he can do dips, and his arms just go burp. Whereas for someone like me, I need like direct work. So I already know now what I need to improve going into the next off season straight away. Anyway,
Are you looking forward to that next off season?
Not at this point.
You just focused on task ahead.
I think there is a point, though, isn't there, in the prep where you start to like, I don't know if it's whether you need to get like the first show out of the way or maybe the second show, but like there is a point where you start going, right, now I can't wait.
I'm so close to growing. I want to grow.
Yeah.
Into that rebound like me at the moment, and you've got to try and hold it. I'm trying to hold it as much as possible and not push forward. Obviously, come off everything, and then I'm waiting until I can input all the anabolics again, and then I can go, right, now is the time to push the body weight, because that'll help you keep condition as you're pushing up as well.
That's the question, right? So obviously in the industry there's like a bit of a mixed opinion on this like post-show rebound phase. So like some people say like you need to like come away, let your body freshen, drop fatigue, because obviously you're not going to grow tissue when your body's fatigued after a prep. But then obviously there's the other camp which say like you're in the most responsive state to grow. Like, what's your opinion on that, like post-show rebound for gaining tissue?
Yeah, spoke about this quite a bit, to be fair. I believe health comes first. So that's what we have to do. I say pull off everything, sort the health out. And I said it in another video, kind of like, if you kind of keep the anabolics in, and then you get 8 weeks post-show, and then you have to pull them out, and then you've just got like a waiting phase of like 8 to 10 weeks where you're just sitting about not doing nothing.
And you'll become smaller. Then mentally, it's again.
Mentally, it's fucked, because I've done that before. I've kept the PEDs in, and then I've got to a point where it's like, right now I've got to sit around for 8 weeks. Whereas if you take them out immediately post-show, and then you've got a natural boost anyway. You're so happy post-show, like everything's just feeling good. And that 8 weeks where you're in your health phase, like it flies by compared to when you actually have to wait for it.
Like, so for me, like the way that I see it is, if you've had one of those preps where your prep's been like 10 or 12 weeks, and you're one of those people who's been on cycle for literally 10 or 12 weeks, and you've done your show or you've won your pro card or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in a really short space of time, and you've only been on for a short space of time, then I can see the benefit, because then you can do an 8-week rebound, and you're only really doing technically a full prep cycle at that point. But like, obviously, like me and you, we do the longer prep. So it's at that point for me, like you, where I would take the drugs out, let the body recover, but use the food to push, then get your bloods, and then add everything in back on top.
Yeah, 100%. I think that works best. I feel like when you're younger as well, it's better to do that, just because of we've got more time as well. I feel like if you're an older, like maybe pushing like 30s, in your 30s and stuff, it's like
Yeah.
You might get that little extra bit of a boost. Like you might need that
Yeah.
bit of extra boost to push for that more muscle. But I don't feel like we're in a rush to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
For us, that health priority needs to come first.
Absolutely.
We're in our 30s and really trying to push for a pro card, and we're going to try and ultra maximize, over maximize this rebound thing.
Yeah.
Health comes first, and then it's always better being that 80% rather than that 100%, if that makes sense.
I think is what's mad as well is like people don't realize the people at the top, like I know Samson spoke about it, is like they run so little amount of drugs. Like apparently, like people saying like if you saw Samson cycle, you'd be like, that's total bullshit. Like you're lying. Like his total anabolic dosage was like so low because they're such hyper responders and they've got the genetics to build muscle. Like they don't need to do that like post-show rebound, whereas obviously we push a little bit harder because we haven't got that genetic component. So like you say, the health phase is big for us because we have to do the bit more of a push in the prep.
Yeah. It's just like everything in bodybuilding though. It's like so individual.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this needs to happen. This drug needs to come in at this point. This needs to come at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just like, it depends on you, and it also depends on your focus. And I do believe most people's focus should be health as number one. And if it is health as number one, then go that route that we're saying.
Yeah.
So what's the show that you're actually doing? Were you 3 weeks out from?
Yeah, so I'm doing the AMP Nutrition Classic on the 29th of July. So that's Jake's show. I believe it's the last regional before the True Athlete. So I do think it's going to be quite busy. I know that the hard bodies this weekend as well come in. So I think the hard body will be quite busy as well. But I feel like Jake's show is going to be a bit like the Graftism of 21, where people are probably going to pile in to get into the True. And then obviously following the AMP, I will do the True Athlete, which is like 10 days later.
Yeah. And then is your kind of mindset just set on that as that's where I'm going pro?
Yeah,
you got any plans after that?
Yeah, well, the way that Jake works, and I've seen this with Marnie, is obviously as a coach, you kind of have to have a penciled plan B. Like you can't just go off the like one and done attitude. But as an athlete, the way that I work best is like one and done. But I know that Jake, there is a real good string of shows following the True Athlete, and I think the next one is there's a Scandinavia 2 Bro show, I think, which is like 2 weeks later. So I don't know what you think, but like I feel the best sort of show to show period is usually about 2 weeks is like the perfect time. I've never done like a show where it's been a week after because, well, I just never have. But the Arnold and the Graftism was 4 weeks, and mate, that was just too long. Like 4 weeks was
feels like a
too long.
I remember back in the days, everyone used to do long ass preps or like even jump back in because everyone used to do really early like regionals just in their town or whatever, and obviously northeast and not if the northeast or then it would have been say like in March. You wouldn't normally done that and then gone to the British Championships, which is in October.
Yeah.
I don't think we really used to plan shows close to each other. It just used to be like, right, this UKBFF qualifier is in my town, so I'm going to do that qualifier.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to kind of come off prep and then go back on prep again. It's so long doing it that way.
Yeah.
As much as we kind of like, oh my God, there's so many shows now, it is also a positive to planning schedules and actually making it.
Yeah. I think as well, though, like if you're doing a show, like you say, in March and then the British is in October, at least you can do a bit of a rebound and then go back in. You can kind of mentally refresh. But the 4 weeks into the Arnold's, mate, was just like I couldn't rebound, and it was trying to hold a look, and then we pushed harder, and it was just too long. So for me, like 2 weeks, I think it's like a perfect spot. So yeah, Jake show, which is the 29th, the True, which is the 11th, and then there's a Scandinavia show 2 weeks later, and then I think 2 weeks after that, there's the one where Brandon Hardin turned pro. In Austria.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So there is a good string of shows, to be fair. And as well, I think the same weekend as the Scandinavia show, there's an Amateur Olympia in Romania.
Okay.
So there's options. There's
always shows about, especially with now everyone traveling abroad, doing all these international shows. What have you done an international show before?
Nah, never.
Nah, it's sick. It's just the experience of it's just so good in terms of like meet and talking to people backstage and meeting people from loads of different, like,
I said,
go on.
go on.
I was just gonna say, when I did Amateur Olympia Spain, like, I was absolutely flagged. Like, as soon as I got off stage, I was like, right, I don't want to be in this arena anymore. It was so loud, and you just want your own space, don't you? Hader was like, "Are you gonna stay in and kind of watch the other guy?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm gonna go and sit outside in the cafe." So I went and sat outside. I smelled some marijuana. I smelled some weed. I was
I've seen it on the story.
I was like, who's smoking? I literally just said that. I said, "Yo, who's smoking weed?" And this Israeli guy, he goes, "It's me, brother." And then me and this, and then we just started chilling, and like, he gave me a full spliff, and then I gave him a bit of what I had, and then we were just chilling.
He had the full brownie, didn't he?
It's just vibes, like, who you meet, and if you're willing to like talk to people and kind of just you get to see and experience a lot more. And his girlfriend, she also competed, and they did like couples routines and stuff like that. We don't do that in England, do we? Like couples routines? Is that cringy? Would you and Marnie ever do a routine together?
No way, fuck that, no way. Do you know what's mad though?
What, right? Not for a guest posing spot?
Mate, what you're forgetting is
I think that'd be good, you know.
Marnie's a posing coach, mate, and she grills me all the time, so I would be getting grilled like left, right, and center, honestly.
Yeah, well, they were showing me this couples routine that they did, and it was all like, it was pretty cool. But I'm like, we don't do nothing like that in England. But to be fair, I don't know, it's a bit cringy, isn't it? Like,
well, mate, Lee Priest did it with his mum.
Yeah,
when he was like 18, him and his mum did a couples routine. Like that's like that's a bit
feels like dancing on ice, like you're on Dancing on Ice. Strictly Come Dancing.
This is the thing as well. So going back to international competing, this is something that Marnie's taught me, because she's done quite a lot of international shows. It's like you need to look at like international shows as like there's more to it than just the competition, like you say. Like other things can arise, like, you know, you can talk to certain people, you can make connections, like you might get a sponsorship out of it, you might meet somebody who knows somebody, like you make friends, like there's a lot of camaraderie because all of your people are in like one place. So like that guy that gave you the spliff and stuff was like, you're one of my people, like let's just fucking connect.
And same with like, I didn't have nowhere to stay that night. I knew my flight was at like 4 a.m. or whatever, so I was like, paying for a hotel. So I just went on my phone, I found this hostel for 20 quid for the night. I was like, I can get a shower there, I can put my stuff in the locker, and then I'll meet Hader and the pro coach guys. So I was like, you guys go back to your places, do all that. And then I needed a ride into town. I was just going around. I was just asking, yo, can you give me what you're doing? You're going into with these couple of crazy ass guys. They were wild. Then they decided to take me, but they were wild. I went in the car, they were playing music. I didn't even know the name. I didn't even know the name until I got in the car. I was like, what's your name, friend? And he was like, I can't remember. But it's just stuff like that doesn't happen in the normal world. Like it's just so easy because everyone in bodybuilding, we are one, especially at international shows like that, because not everyone from that country.
I feel like as well that everybody kind of feels like not on their own, but they feel like, I guess, on their own. So it feels good for other people to be on that vibe, on that energy, because you don't feel as alone. You feel like you're part of something. Especially if you're away from home in a foreign country.
So stripping it right back, talking about like feeling alone, have you ever felt alone as a bodybuilder in terms of just people understanding you, like in your early days, and just like your family getting to grips with what you actually want to do? Does it make sense to them? Like, what's your story there?
So basically growing up, I was always around like bodybuilding, weightlifting, power, like strongman. So my dad's been into the gym my whole life, but not like bodybuilding. It was more strongman. So I remember growing up as a kid. It's really weird. It's like, obviously as a kid we would have like, you know, breaded chicken for tea or whatever. My dad would be having like just normal chicken breast, and as a kid I'd try it and be like, why would you want to eat that? It tastes like shit. And then like back in the day, like when I was growing up, you know, supplements weren't easy to come by. And obviously like protein powders back in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was a kid were like, they didn't taste like they do now. But I remember my dad would have stockpiles of protein powder, and again, I would think it would be like Nesquik milk, but it was just obviously tasted like shit. So I've always been around bodybuilding, and my dad was massively into World's Strongest Man. So the person that really like I can remember a lot was Mariusz Pudzianowski, who was like the world's strongest man at the time. I remember looking at his physique and being like, this guy's a fucking animal, because he wasn't like an Eddie Hall or like a Brian Shaw. He was more like a bodybuilder, power lifter. He had like aesthetics. He had a six-pack abs. He had big delts. Like he wasn't just a big fat guy. So that was kind of where it came from. So my dad's always been into the gym, luckily for me. So when I turned 16, it was him that got me into the gym, because where I live, you have to be 16 to get into the gym. But the biggest area that I kind of found like being alone was the people that I was with at school, or like the people that I used to knock around with. So I don't know about you, but I've got quite like an addictive full-on personality. So when I find something that I love, I latch onto it, and I really latch onto it. I remember joining the gym and like just something clicked, and I stopped going out. I stopped socializing. It was all about the gym, the gym, the gym. Like going on YouTube, like researching things, because at the time, like YouTube fitness was just coming around, and I just got into the gym like massively. And it's at that point that you notice people start to drop off. But as I got older, I realized I don't think they dropped off. I think it's that I started to maybe isolate myself a little bit more than what I thought. But I've never really felt alone. It was more so just when I kind of first got into it, it wasn't really family. It was more like the people that I was friends with at the time, because they were into other things or they weren't quite as into it as me. And then I was like a lone wolf, so to speak, for quite a while. Like I did a lot of training and stuff in the gym on my own. So that's the only real area that I found sort of isolation was in the beginning, really.
So stripping it back to your dad and your family, it's kind of interesting to see that your training style is not more like my training style, because I feel like our training styles are very, very different. You've got a different approach, and looking at obviously what you said you were inspired by, I would expect more of a like my style approach, where it's like I just fucking like lifting heavy shit. But you're a lot more direct with your training, aren't you? So how did that transition happen?
Yeah, man. So like I started like bodybuilding. Like I actively say like I started bodybuilding at 23, because that's when I got my first coach. So from like 16 to 23, it was the whole 4 sets of 12, like, you know, the volume style bro split training. And then I got my first coach at 23, which was a guy called Owen Powell. I don't know if you know Owen. He was a classic physique guy. He's kind of fallen off, but he was like the big thing at the time to be like the next big thing in classic in the UK. And he was still on that bro split 4 sets of 12 kind of approach. But then what happened was, it was actually my brother, who is also really into training. He's actually my training partner. He said, why don't we go and train at Ant Bale's gym, which is Max Muscle near us? So I went up there to get a session, and obviously this is the first ever pro bodybuilder I've ever seen in the flesh. So it's quite intimidating. But if you ever get to meet Ant, you'll understand that like he just wants the torch to be passed down to the younger generation correctly. So a lot of what he posts is like tongue in cheek, like he'll take the piss out of like D handles and stuff, but it's more so that he's aiming it at like just learn to train hard rather than like following all these TikTok trends. So my training philosophy and like accuracy and stuff changed when I met Anth, because Anth taught me that he really believes in the Dorian Yates low volume, high intensity training, just being super accurate, loading the bar with as much weight as you can, but getting the most out of the least. So it was when I was about 24, 25 when I met Anth, and that's when I learned to train low volume, high intensity and be like really accurate with your training. But I think as well, like as I've gone through like fitness and bodybuilding, is obviously social media has just become more and more prevalent. So I started obviously watching more things on YouTube. I started following more people on Instagram, and I started learning more and realizing that I'm not like textbook form, but I'm also not like balls to the wall, like just clang and bang. I'm like a meet in the middle. I do believe in like a little bit of body English, but not too much.
Yeah.
So I would probably say it's when I met Ant, to be fair, because he was the one who got me into the low volume, high intensity Dorian Yates style of training.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that I need to switch up a bit as well. I need to try and get a little bit more direct with my training, because I've just been, like you said, push pull legs, and then lacking arms and stuff like that. I feel like that's definitely something that I've done, like a lack arms. So I need to get a lot more direct with like certain body parts to try and grow those body parts and start thinking more like a bodybuilder than just shifting weights at times. That's, to be fair, I see a lot of people in the younger generation now, just because of TikTok and Instagram, and they're too bothered about the 1RMs and stuff like that. I've never been bothered about my 1RMs. I've always like my 6RMs. That's been what it's been like. But a lot of these kids now are so bothered about the 1RMs and what one rep, and it's like, what's the point?
Mate, I've never, if someone said to me, like, what's your 1 rep max on deadlift, bench, like squat, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because I've never done it. It's never
That's
been
the
something.
first question when you say you go gym, or someone looks at you out in the general population. And they
how much you bench?
Or how much you bench? I don't fucking know. This for 12, or like, what am I supposed to? I don't know. 6 weeks ago, I could do this. It changes year round. Like, am I in prep? Am I in deep in an off season? Like, I don't know. Does it matter?
Yeah. But I think as you get through like your training ages, I think that you can allow for more like body English and still feel the muscle. So I see people like really, really preach, like really slow eccentrics, really slow concentrics, but there's a time and a place for that. And I think it's more so for beginners. And I think as you get further into your bodybuilding career and you understand contractions more and stuff, I do think that you can rip and grip a little bit more, get more out of it, and still grow. Like, I don't think that somebody who's been training for 15 years needs to be ultra mega slow, squeeze, like ultra mega slow, like pause. Like, I think you can still get on a T-bar and pull it pretty quickly, but still get the same stimulus, if not more, because you understand the mind muscle connection and stuff like that.
So for like young kids first stepping into a gym, what would you say the approach should be in terms of training protocols?
I would say keep your exercise selection fairly basic. I don't mean like flat bench, deadlift. Like, I'm not a big believer in all of that stuff. I do believe more so. I personally believe more in machine work. Like, I don't think the muscle doesn't know what you're using. It just knows the tension you put it under. I do believe there's a time and a place though for it, but I would say learn to train hard and accurate, but don't be too focused about your form. Just train safe, train heavy. But most importantly, mate, like, just enjoy yourself. Like, I think a lot of the training styles at the moment just take all the fun out of it. Like, a lot of the reason why I got into bodybuilding in the beginning was because I fucking loved it. Like, I just loved to go at the gym and just pick some weights up and just chuck them around. I didn't overthink anything. I didn't logbook. I just knew that day I was training chest and I was going to do these exercises, and that was it. And then that progressively, like, that love just got bigger and bigger, and then that's when I started looking into the intricacies. I feel like maybe the younger generation get into intricacies a bit too soon. But in the same breath, though, I think it's because we as sort of content creators and coaches have to be careful about what we put out and who we put it out to, because we're influencing them. So they can only really go off what they're being told sometimes. And I think a lot of content creators forget that the youngsters are very like influential. So if they see somebody doing a D-hander pull down who's been training for 15 years, they don't realize that person was doing barbell bent over rows for the first 8 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I always try to put that on my Instagram, that I just fucking lift weights, and that's it, because sometimes it's as easy as that. And I'm sure you get it as a coach. Sometimes you'll get questions, and they're not per se stupid questions, but they're just like, bro, you don't need to think that much. Please stop thinking and just because I just have to tell people, you're getting questions about the more small, minute things that just I promise you, they don't matter. You just need to go in and train and do this, or you need to do this is how your diet needs to be. This little one minuscule thing that you add into your diet is not going to change everything massively. For you right now, maybe say you get to the advanced level, or you someone like us where we get close to a show and we need to manipulate these small things. But like, if you're not in that position, it's so basic to be a bodybuilder. It's just accountability and doing the same shit over and over again. You don't have to change your training split all the time. Do you have different training splits for, say, like the off season and prep, or do you kind of stay with the same training?
Mate, I've had this training split since I stepped off stage at the Arnold in 2021. I've run the
say
same.
That to people. People don't understand that. People don't. I've had the same training split for so long, just the same going over and over again, just hammering the same shit.
Mate, there's only so many exercises. There's only so many machines in the gym. Do you know what I mean? And the way that a muscle grows is it's just progressively getting stronger over time, which is you can't just change a training split every 3 months. Like it's not going to adapt. It's not going to grow in time. And I think one thing as well is people think that when they stall on a movement that it's got to be swapped out. There's other ways that you can progress on that movement. Like obviously we know like tempo, form, whatever, but also like even just the positioning in a workout. Like if you do T-bar rows first and you feel like you've maximized it, why don't you put it second or third? And then that means that you're going to have to then restart that movement rather than swapping it out for something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like I say, I've run this training split since the end of my last prep. Obviously there's been a few things added or swapped out maybe
Little
because
manipulations and stuff. Yeah,
little
like
minute.
little one that I made recently was I used to do, so you'd say like a squat movement. I used to do right at the start of my legs. Well, second exercise, I'd always say like do leg extension first, and then I'd go into the squat movement. But then the rest of my leg workout, I'm absolutely mashed up because of how intense that I go in that squat. So I've actually moved that squat now to probably like the second to last movement.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm still shifting weight and squatting a big amount, like it's gonna be, because I've done one set of hinge before that, I've done whatever before that, and my legs are absolutely burnt. And now I'm going into kind of finalize and diminish that, and then I can go home. But being at the start, like I've done for so long, workouts, I don't feel like I've been maximized to what they could have been maximized in terms of muscle breakdown.
Yeah, so for me, like if you want to use legs as an example, like same thing. I'm a stronger leg presser than I am a squatter. So I would always do my leg press before my squatting. So I could chuck 12, 15 plates on a leg press, no problem. But when I got into a squat, I would realize that I'd be shit basically. And like the squat was where I needed to improve the most. So for me, the biggest change like with legs was, well, why don't we just put a squat movement before a leg press movement, rinse the squat, and then I'm also then actually preventing myself potentially injuring myself on a leg press because all I was doing was just putting more and more and more weight on.
Always injuring on squats, me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and thing is, mate, I've got knees, like I've got joints like chocolate. Like my joints are fucking tiny, mate. So if I do like a pendulum and my knee travels just like an inch too far one way, my knee will just tell me to fuck off straight away. So I've got to be super careful with stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think one manipulation that I made coming into the back end of my prep this year was I ended up going on to 2 days on 1 day off training.
Yeah.
Just to obviously bring fatigue down a little bit. And then obviously rest day calories would bring your total calories for the week down as well. So without changing anything in the foods or in the diet plan, I was essentially eating less over the week because I was having more rest days. So that's like a manipulation that you can make without actually going in and changing anything at all. You just change around your training days. But I did that in terms of just trying to wash off fatigue. And obviously, you know, as prep gets deeper, you start not even wanting to be in the gym. You get to the point where you're just going through the motions, and it gets really hard to just be and actually performing in it. I'm only just picking that enjoyment back up now.
So that's a really good point, mate. So literally, yesterday, Jake's brought all my training sets down to one set now, because what we were finding was I was just fucked. Like I was just absolutely mashed. And I was saying to Jake, like, I think I need to be fed. I need to be fed. I need to be fed. And he's like, you don't need to be fed because you're not flat, but your food's also still high and your cardio's low. So I'm sat there for ages thinking like, why the fuck am I so fatigued? And I really wanted the feed, not for like satiety or fullness. It was because I needed more energy.
Yeah.
So Marnie sat me down and she was like, look, you go in the gym and you literally want to tear somebody's head off every time you train. She's like, when you train so far past where you should be, you forget you're 3 weeks out, like you're mashing yourself into the floor. So we realized that my training was just too intense and my volume needed to come down. So we pulled that down, man. And overnight, I dropped nearly 1 kilo, like in CNS fatigue, like in retention and fluid. So that, like you say, like it's all just like micromanaging stuff like that.
Yeah. That's when those kind of questions come into play. You know, like we're talking about people asking silly questions. You only need to really manipulate these small things and be aware of these small things when you running yourself into a show. Because I think one of the questions I get quite a lot is, I'm feeling watery today or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you're not. It doesn't matter if you are. Why does it matter? You're not stepping
Yeah,
in a few
yeah,
weeks. You're gonna have you might just have a little bit more water that you're holding this week.
yeah.
You need to be looking your perfect self every single week.
Yeah, mate, I say this all the time. Like when people are on prep, I'm like, the only point that really matters is the day that you get on stage. Like, obviously, you can't be a week out and you still be fat. But what I mean is, like, you're gonna have those days and those fluctuations where you don't look your best. But you see people. It's almost like a badge of honor where they're like 8 weeks out and they're like, I'm this lean. It's like, yeah, but mate, it doesn't really matter for for another 8 weeks. Like, do you know what? You just chill, man. Like, you need to be ready on the day.
Yeah. How have you had any kind of social media anxiety and stuff with your training? Like with your look in terms of mindset and stuff like that. How do you go about dealing with that?
Nah, do you know what, mate? It's mad, right? This prep, I literally don't know who's doing the show. Um, I don't look at anybody's physique and think like, if this guy turns up like he's going to smash me into the floor, or like it makes me panic or makes me think that I'm behind. And I think that's due to how confident I am in how much I put into my off season. So me and Marnie were literally talking about this the other day. It's like I think a lot of my confidence this year is coming off the back of knowing that I did everything possible in my off season, and obviously so far on this prep where like I'm like, do you know what? Whatever happens on the day happens. Obviously, I'm going to win. Who doesn't go to win? But like, I can leave that stage going. Do you know what? I fucking gave that absolutely everything.
I think that's something that really separates us as bodybuilders to Instagram bodybuilders. I put a post up yesterday, a reel, where I was like, I'm not putting you into that show because if you look like a dickhead, it makes me look like a dickhead. Because bodybuilders, they don't have all these excuses in prep. They're not going. I had this one guy, yeah, man, went on holiday at like 6 weeks out. He just said, I'm going on holiday next week. I'm like, bro, you're 6 weeks out. What's going on? And then he says, I've got another holiday into, bro, you're going to be 3 weeks out. What the fuck are you going on holiday? He's like, oh, I can't. I've got books and this and that. I was like, I can't be dealing with all these excuses. If you're a bodybuilder, these excuses do not happen. You need to understand that you are just someone who likes going to the gym, or if you're an actual bodybuilder, because I promise you, if you're an actual bodybuilder, nothing matters more than the look that you're going to bring to stage. Like nothing in your matters. Like you are fucking so driven on that. I don't get these social media bodybuilders. They're not actually doing it because they love bodybuilding or they want to bring their best look. They're doing it because they want to look like a bodybuilder on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So literally, mate, if you want to talk about clients, and I don't want to give this guy airtime, but fuck it, I'm going to bring it up anyway. I had a client. He's left me now. Who was 6 weeks out, and like 6 weeks out is when prep really starts. Like prep doesn't really start until like 6 weeks out. And he ate off plan one day, and I was like, not ideal. He said he was ill. I was like, you know what? I'll let it slip. We've still got 6 weeks. Like, thanks for telling me. Like, we've got time to rectify it, whatever. And then he was like, as we got through the next week, he was saying to me like, I'm happy to get on stage looking like this 6 week out condition. And like you've just said there, I was like, well, you might be, mate, but I'm not. Like, you're representing me and my brand. And I'm like, no, like if you're going to get on stage, you're going to get on. And bear in mind, this guy was wanting to win an overall sword. And I'm like, I know what the lads look like who win overall swords, and I'm going to take you there. If that's what you want, then I'll take you there. But it's going to be fucking hard. And he was like, no, like I'm happy to get on stage. Like this is the best I've ever looked. And I'm like, yeah, but you can look even better. Like you've just got to dig. And like you said, like true bodybuilders like will relish. Like I always say, when a coach makes a change, they're doing it for your benefit. Like today, Jake giving me more cardio and less food. I'm like, yeah, fucking bring it, because that's going to make me look better in 3 weeks.
Yeah. You just have to be all in. A lot of people are not all in, but because that's how bodybuilding's grown so much over the last few. I only say it's grown so much over the last 5 years. Bodybuilding has we've seen it have like small periods of booming. Yeah. So we obviously had certain areas which was booming, and then it's kind of died off in the 2000s a little bit, and then now it's starting to pick back up again because of social media and the introduction of classic, or men's physique first, and then the introduction of classic, which just opened the doors a lot more. And then Chris Bumstead's come in as this whole new presence, which has then opened it up to a lot more people than he would have done just because of his social media presence and his marketability.
Yeah, his reach, like they were saying, like on a podcast, that his reach now has almost become like outside of bodybuilding. Like you could ask some people that don't even follow bodybuilding who Chris Bumstead is, and they'll know who he is. So now his reach has like even gone outside of bodybuilding now. So
Yeah,
that is going to bring people in.
You can go into any university or any school and probably they'll know who Chris Bumstead is, and it just shows the advancement of bodybuilding and like where it's heading. But with that brings more bullshit as well. More people
that is the problem. That is the problem.
Because everyone wants to be that. They see the Chris Bumsteads and they're like, oh yeah, I want a piece of that, but they don't actually want a piece of that because they're not willing to graft for it. They're not a natural bodybuilder. They're wanting all the claps without the graft. Because remember, we got to do how many weeks of graft work? Well, every single week of the year. It's a 24/7 job.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you find like your coaching and stuff along with bodybuilding? Do you manage it well?
Yeah, mate. Do you know what it is? I'm blessed, like really blessed to have the team that I have. I don't know about like your guys, but a lot of my guys, they get it. And a lot of them train at my gym, and a lot of them give me the space I need when I train. And obviously with being on prep, like I'm up at like 4 a.m. doing check-in replies anyway. So they're getting all their shit back like well early. And they understand obviously as well that like after a certain point in the day, like they'll get a reply the next day. Like they're all very, very understanding. Like the little work schedule that I've got going on in prep, and the guys that I coach are just honestly a blessing, man, because they give me so much time a day. And a lot of them as well are younger than me, and they all aspire to be where I am and do what I do, and they all have a lot of respect for me. So I think that all plays a big role. Like the team that I've got, mate, honestly, they really are a blessing to be working with.
Yeah, I think that's important. We have to walk the walk as bodybuilders, because if I think about a lot of my guys, they massively look up to me. Me putting myself on a pedestal and being big-headed, saying they look up to you know that I put in the work every single day. And they kind of feed off that, and they want to put in that work because some just don't put the work in themselves, and it's like, how can I aspire to be like you? Like I see Hader and what Hader's been through personally and mentally, and what he's done in the back-to-back shows. Shows in a season, 8 shows in a season, back chasing a pro card, and I'm like, okay, that pushes me to I can feed off that graft. But to have a coach who just sits around and just laptop works, and even though you might be a little bit slower on replies, or you might be a little bit dead a few weeks of the year where you're drafting, I'm absolutely fine with that.
Mate, that what you've said there, you've hit the nail on the head. Like I'm such a big believer in walking the walk as a coach. Like I will never tell any of my guys to do anything that I either haven't done or I am not willing to do.
I'm seeing guys prep people for shows that's never stepped on stage himself.
How?
I'm like, how does that make sense? How can you do that? You don't understand what it takes mentally for one, and that's one of the biggest parts of it.
Like one person I really look up to at the moment is do you know Peter Hill, Hilly Doc?
Yeah.
He basically openly admitted that he's actually put his progress on the back burner, or he could be a lot further down the line. But what he does is he uses himself as an experiment. Even when those experiments aren't actually working in his favor, he'll see them out just so that he's got that data collection to then use on his clients. Like I love stuff like that, because then, you know, I can't turn around to my guys and say, take this drug or do this amount of cardio or don't eat this if I haven't done it. Like that would be so like hypocritical. It wouldn't be fair. So I'm a massive believer in like walking the walk. And I think that respect is then earned from your clients. And they're like, do you know what? Yeah, fucking hell. Like you said about Hader, mate, how many people do one pro qualifier, don't win the card, and then say, oh, bodybuilding's not for me. Like, fuck it. I'm like, Hader did 8 shows in a season or whatever it was. He just kept going. He got to Norway, didn't he? And he got denied at the border.
Turned him away, and mentally, that's
has he got 2 kids, 3 kids?
3 now.
How can you, as a, you know, some people being single or living at home or whatever, quit after one pro qualifier and not like even making it into the overall? You've got somebody like Hader who's turning up, he's getting into the overall, getting knocked back, and I'm like, that's what I look up to. And then I say to myself, well, what the fuck's my excuse?
Yeah, something that I really looked up to with Hader was just seeing his kind of family life. That I think that really
Yeah,
impacted me. When I went over to Dubai. I was in such a bad place at times, but I'd go over to his place and I'd just his kids would be around and his kids are fun, and it was just like a good atmosphere in the way that
yeah,
he balances everything in terms of like his kids' happiness, but then also grafting and doing the shit that he needs to get done. Like
yeah,
his whole setup just inspired me so much because I'm like,
yeah,
at one point, I want kids and I want to be able to have a family like this that are understanding and stuff like that. And then, but then I can still be a good dad, and
yeah.
not even just the physique aspect of it or the graft aspect of it. It's the fact is he's such a good dad as well, which makes me massively look up to him.
Yeah, people like him and Rob Taylor, man, I've got so much respect for, because I'm like, you work your absolute arse off, but at the same time, you're a dad and you're a husband and you're there for your family and with a smile on your face. And I'm like, it's so commendable, man. It's so commendable.
In talking about relationships and stuff, how like you and Manny, like what's that relationship like in
Yeah,
terms
I
of,
knew, I knew, I knew this was going to come up.
we'll finish it off here because we're getting close to like over an hour now. So
Yeah, shit, man.
it's like the ending.
Yeah,
I just
look, man.
about that the how you do you prep
Yeah,
together and what
yeah. So mate, I wear my heart on my sleeve, man. I'm not one of these guys who's like man up and all this. Like I really am an emotional person, and that girl, like, she is my absolute rock, like my absolute rock. So, I was going through a really, really shit. Well, I go a bit further back. I knew of Marnie on Instagram, um, in like 2017 when I first got into bodybuilding, and she obviously lives in the northeast. And at the time, I was working in pharmaceutical, and she was doing a biomed degree. And I fancied the fucking pants off her, and I was like, she's a competitor. She's doing like science. I'm like, we're literally made for each other. I was like, what the fuck? And I followed her on Instagram, and she followed me back, and I was like, oh shit, here we go. And then I think my content was just dead, man. My content was just so dead. She unfollowed me, and I was just like, bro,
oh,
shit, shit.
oh
Uh,
shit.
yeah, oh, fuck. But I remember looking at her content, mate, and I was like, this girl's just like so, like, I'm gonna compare you and Marnie being the same person. You two are so outgoing. You're like these massive characters, right? You're very extrovert. You always like look at life through a lens of like what if, but like a positive what if. Like you'll take risks, and like again, like I know of you through Marnie, because I know that, I think, did you guys do the 2019 British finals or something like that?
We
You,
know we worked together. We was coaching under a certain team together for a small
right.
time,
And
and
I remember you being like the male version of Marnie. I was like, this kid's got so much fucking confidence on stage, like just smiling from ear to ear. And like Marnie's obviously like that as well. I remember at the time, like Marnie was working booths at like Body Power and stuff, and I was like, this girl knows her fucking shit, man.
mm,
And she's the opposite of me. We're like yin and yang. So I'm quite introvert, and I'm very like blue, like very calm. She's very like red and outgoing and extrovert. So we really work well together. Anyway, I got into like a relationship in 2019. It was very toxic. And then Ultraflex Durham opened, and she'd moved back to Newcastle from Liverpool Uni because of COVID.
yeah,
And Ultraflex Durham opened. I moved there. She moved there. And there was this evening, right? It was like a really busy Monday, and like 6 p.m. on a Monday, mate, fucking rammed. And I was waiting for my training partners at the desk, and I was drinking my pre-workout, and she must have been on the gym floor training. And she came over to the desk, and she asked the guy behind the desk, like, can I get a spot on the leg press? And the guy at the desk was like, I can't really get off the desk because it's so busy. And
mm,
I was stood there drinking my pre-workout, and the lad looked at me and he went, do you want to go and spot Mania? And she was like looking at me, and I couldn't really say no. I was like, because my ex-partner would have flipped if she knew. So I was like, yeah, go on then. So I went and spotted her on the leg press, mate. She had 8 plates on the hammer strength leg press. And I was like, what the fuck?
get out.
Uh, but she had Vibrams on, mate. And I was like,
Oh no.
but she was working with Cuba. She was working with Cuba at the time. So I was like, right, whatever. And yeah, spotted her on the leg press. She went to rack it at 7 reps. And I was like, fuck that, you've got one more. And she got the 8th rep, right? And that was it. Like, it literally just, it stopped at that. And then I think we followed each other on Instagram. And then
you re-followed it.
Yeah. And then my ex-partner found out about me spotting her because the girls in the gym were quite bitchy. Anyway, push came to shove, and that relationship was on the rocks anyway, and we split up. I remember Marnie, we went back into lockdown, and Marnie went out to Dubai, and she was training in Dubai. And I'm at home, mate, in my garage using a barbell and shit, and she's out in Dubai, like in oxygen or whatever.
We all escaped them. We all escaped.
Yeah,
That
and
was
she's out.
lockdown times. I remember we got stopped at the airport, and I told them I'm a YouTuber, and it was like, yeah, so absolutely blagged it. But go.
So yeah, so she was training out there, and I just took my chance, man. Dropped her a message, and she replied back saying like, "Should you really be messaging me?" Because she knew about my ex-partner and everything that kicked off. And I was like, "Oh, we're not together anymore." And we're just like back and forth a little bit, and then we came out of lockdown. I think she came home, and then we went back into lockdown. And I was fortunate enough in that lockdown to find a gym to train from.
Yeah.
So I said to her like, look, if you want to be training partners during lockdown, like I'm more than happy to be training partners. And it literally developed into this really, really good friendship. We had like a ton in common. And then she was very like adamant from the start. She was like, look, I don't want a relationship. I don't want a partner. She even openly said to somebody, I actually don't fancy Joe remotely. I was like, oh shit. But yeah, then it just developed it, and we just ended up getting together, and we did our first prep in 21 together. And she's taught me like so much when it comes to like how to market yourself, self-belief, confidence, like making conversation with people, like you say, going to shows abroad, like making connections, speaking to people. But then I taught her a lot when it came to how to train hard, how to diet like hard, like so we meshed really well because we brought different elements to the table. So when we prepped together in 21, mate, it was a fucking breeze. It was really enjoyable. Obviously, she won the overall sword. And I'm like, fuck's sake, man. Because I went into the overall at the Graftis and I didn't get the sword, and I thought we were both going to get it. But no, she got the overall that year. But this prep's been a bit more difficult because she was in prep like from September of last year to April of this year, and then there was like a bridging period where I came into prep around February and she was still on prep. So the length of time when I finish from when she started prep will be like a total of like a year where we've not been able to do stuff.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to support network, if we want to talk about support network, mate, like it's crucial. Like I was pulling weight when she was struggling, and now she's pulling weight when I'm struggling, and it works so well, mate. Like just so well.
Yeah, that's perfect. And like you said, like she didn't want a relationship. Sometimes those girls that don't want a relationship are actually the best people to end up in relationships with.
Yeah.
It's a lot of just ambition on themselves, and it shows a lot of focus on herself. I'm guessing Marnie had a lot of focus on herself and the shit that she was doing.
Oh, she did.
You didn't want to impact that too much by getting caught up in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
It always comes down to what you just need to make sure, like, if you can make that ambitious girl know that you're there to support them, not to hold them back.
Yeah.
That's when the eyes will open to like, and that's when you can make them. Because a lot of these girls nowadays are starving for relationships.
Yeah.
For the sake of it.
Yeah.
Just starving for a relationship and just to have someone there. But
yeah,
like I said, if you find a girl that doesn't want a relationship and she's showing ambition and stuff like that, it's like I promise you, and I'm just going to help you out, get to where you want to get. You can return that.
That's the thing. Like,
it works.
We both share the same ambitions, the same goals. Obviously, she turned pro this year, which was unbelievable to see. Obviously, that is my goal for this year as well. Like, we both want to travel the world. We both want to have like sponsorships with big companies. We both want to have like thriving coaching companies. Like, we have so much ambition that it just works. Neither of us are like holding each other back. Like, Marnie knows that if she needs to go off and do her own thing, like she went to the Pittsburgh and the New York on her own because I was on prep, and that was not a problem. Like, some people in the relationship might be like, why are you not coming with me? Or you should be coming with me. But I'm like, nah, do your own thing. Like, you're your own person.
I think that's very important in bodybuilding, because all my relationships in the past have been not bodybuilders, and then you get to the point where you're like, you're apologizing for being a bodybuilder.
Yes, yeah.
That's the worst thing, when you have
The
to,
worst thing.
even though they're saying they're understanding and whatever. Me and Sam are going to talk about relationships and stuff on the Cost of Bodybuilding
Yeah,
Talks episode 4. I think we're doing it next week.
right.
We'll talk about more like the relationship side of stuff, and we're going to talk financial as well. But anyway, on the relationship front, it's just like, it's horrible to, yeah, they're saying that they support you, this and this and that, but then you're treading on eggshells, because you're like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry that I'm a bodybuilder. Like,
yeah,
look, why am I saying I'm sorry for being a
yeah,
bodybuilder? Can you not just pull me up instead of
yeah.
like pulling me down? Can you not just
That's
push?
what I found, like with my ex before Marnie, was like, she said, I'll support you, but when push comes to shove and they realize what it really takes to support a competitive bodybuilder, that's when it falls down.
Yeah, I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy that you've managed to build that relationship and have that structure, and you both got that ambition, because you're both smashing it and you're both going to continue to smash it. We're going to round this off now, because it's been about an hour, but I'm sure there's probably an episode number 2 at some point, probably.
Mate, definitely. I really want to dive into, like in the next episode into like classic physique.
Yeah.
Like what I think about classic and all of that. Like that would be a wicked episode.
Yeah, man. And so as soon as you've done your shows, we'll get another one booked in. We'll bring up your
I'll have a pro card up here, and
have a pro card up there. We can bring up your look. We can see your swords and stuff. And we'll go more into like the actual competitive side of class.
Yeah.
Get intricate with that kind of stuff. It's been really good to kind of get insight into you a little bit more and know you more as a person, and what you go through and what you've had to deal with at times, and just how you built yourself into this person that you are now, and your whole support network and everything, man. It's all good. It's been a good conversation.
I just wanted to say, like, thank you for letting me to come on. And I think what you've got going on here, mate, is brilliant. Like, I remember when you dropped me a voice note with like your ideas and stuff, I'm like, this is perfect. Like, this is what the UK is missing, because we have so many good amateur athletes that we don't really get to delve into them. And I think what you've got going with this, and then obviously with Sam, it's like, it's what's missing. So I think that what you've got here, mate, is absolutely golden. I think it's going to be brilliant.
Sick, man. Like I said on my story, like, these sacrifices start from early. It's all good hearing it from the pro guys and stuff like that, and saying, oh yeah, well, I've made it here. Yeah, but there's hundreds of thousands of young guys, amateurs, who are making these sacrifices, who are trying to sculpt the life around bodybuilding, that don't actually ever make it to even getting a pro card. And that's the kind of voice that we need to hear, because
it makes it more relatable, because the people that are going to watch this are going to be following these people on Instagram, and we're all just normal guys and girls, like just going after a passion, after something that we really want to chase. And I think it's just more relatable.
100%, man. It's been a good episode. So we're going to call it there. Athlete Insight with Joe Richardson. We wish him all the best to get his pro card, and we'll hear from him, like we said, with the pro card in the background next time. So
yeah, man.
Peace.
Peace.
Sick, man.